ने तो इन्हें डिजिटल पेमेंट करना सिखा दिया है। आपने आरबीआई कहता है कि
डिजिटल पेमेंट अपनाओ
औरों को भी सिखाओ।
You're watching India G20 on the show today, the second G20 Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion meeting and the Knowledge and Experience Exchange program for the emerging economies of the Global South concluded in Hyderabad today. We will take you through the takeaways from the meeting. Also on the show, the highlights of India's G20 presidency over 3 months after India assumed presidency of the key grouping and more G20 news. I'm Munun Bhattacharya. First up, the top stories. Second day of G20 Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion meeting in Hyderabad. The focuses on digital financial inclusion, finance for small and medium enterprises and data harmonization. Economic advisor with India's Finance Ministry, Chanchal Sarkar, unanimously elected as the co-chair of Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion for the next 3 years. As a co-chair, he will steer the Financial Inclusion Action Plan for 2024-2026 period. India's G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant pens an op-ed on the impetus to women-led growth under India's G20 presidency. Writes, India as G20 president will support women's digital and financial inclusion, making them equal stakeholders in development, pushing for women's leadership and investing in collection of gender disaggregated data. The Indian Institute of Technology in Ropar to host the second Education Working Group meeting on strengthening research and innovation through collaboration from 15th to 17th March in Amritsar. Meeting will identify relevant policies and best practices for research and innovations. The second G20 Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion meeting and Knowledge Experience Exchange program for the emerging economies of the Global South concluded in Hyderabad today. India and Italy were announced as the new long-term co-chairs of the GPFI. The new co-chairs have been selected for a duration of 3 years and their tenure will commence from 2024. During the plenary, the GPFI members discussed and agreed on the way forward for important deliverables for the year, including those on digital financial inclusion and SME finance. A dedicated workshop was also organized for the development of GPFI Financial Inclusion Action Plan 2023, which will guide the financial inclusion work under G20 for 2024 to 2026 period. Economic advisor with India's Finance Ministry, Chanchal Sarkar, has been elected as the co-chair for GPFI unanimously for the next 3 years, where he will steer the financial action plan for 2024 to 2026 period. DD India correspondent Ajay Mishra spoke with him. He is India's chair of GPFI working group meeting and also economic advisor with India's Finance Ministry. He also spoke with M. Bianco, the co-chair of GPFI working group meeting, who is from the Central Bank of Italy. Listen in.
The second GPFI working group meeting had just concluded in Hyderabad, and we are privileged to have with us the chair and the co-chair of this meeting. Let me first introduce you to the co-chair, who is from the Central Bank of Italy, M. Bianco. Thank you very much, ma'am. Your first reaction about the G20 presidency in general, what has been the perception so far?
Well, they are doing a great work this year as well, putting together the G20 members to progress in the global agenda under many respects. And I think our agenda of this group is very important because it's financial inclusion. And even during this meeting, this 2 days meeting, I think our agenda progressed. We discussed together the deliverables under the Indian presidency, which is a very important one, but we are also planning our future. We are planning our strategic plan for the next 3 years. We discussed a lot on members cooperatively discussed about our future plans to progress together the financial inclusion agenda. We still have a lot to do.
Yeah. In the Kolkata meeting, ma'am, the digital public infrastructure was the core focus, where India showcased the might of digital payment system and the India stack in general. What is the focus for the second meeting, and what did you discuss in the last 2 days, especially the focus in the global south?
Well, we had India organized a very interesting meeting with the Global South, and the focus was in general financial inclusion, with a special focus again on digital public infrastructure, which is a very relevant issue for everybody, but for the Global South as well, bringing the very interesting experience of India. Payments was another focus, which is very relevant because if they work well, it can be a great source of inclusion as well. And then we discussed some other topics like consumer protection and financial literacy, which can accompany well this great infrastructure in ensuring greater inclusion for all.
I'll come back to you, ma'am, but let me introduce you the chair of this working group meeting, Mr. Chanchal Sarkar, who is the economic advisor in the Ministry of Finance. Sir, thank you very much and congratulations for being, your election for the next 3 years, the co-chair for the next 3 years. Thank you very much for the time. What has been the progress so far, if you can just, share with us, sir?
Thank you very much. As the co-chair, Ms. Magda Bianco has pointed out, that we had a very good discussion in the first GPFI agenda, and that we have had similar progress towards those agenda which are like presidency priorities of digital public infrastructure financial inclusions. Apart from that, the regular agenda on the advancing financial inclusion, then we have SME finance, and then consumer protection. Apart from that, there are various side events that were organized, like in the first meeting. Here we have organized in line with the direction of our Honorable Prime Minister. The Global South's voice should be reflected in the G20 agenda. Accordingly, in order to get the aspirations and their needs, we organized the Global South exchange programs, where various aspects of governance through digital public infrastructure, how digital financial inclusion can be improved, how the consumer protection can be ensured, and how the exchange of information can help us discourse in the ongoing agenda of G20 and benefit the whole of G20 as well as beyond G20.
But sir, what is the update on the financial inclusion action plan for the year 2024 to 26? Are we confident that we'll be able to finalize under India's G20 presidency?
Yes, as the co-chair Magda Bianco has rightly said, that this is the time when the new FIAP would need to be discussed and developed. In the first meeting we just had the beginning, and this time we had a very productive discussions where members have come forward with a lot of good inputs. We wish to take them on board and finalize our digital, the financial inclusion action plan for next 3 years, starting from 2024.
Ms. Bianco, when it comes to inclusion, the MSME forms a very important, ecosystem. Where do you see the agenda going forward from MSME sector, because that's also considered as a backbone for several developing economies, including India?
Yeah, but I would say including some developed economies. In Italy, micro and small enterprises are the backbone of the economy. So we're all concerned about this issue and the issue of financing of micro enterprises. And here, well, in our agenda we have, something that ranks really high is having data that allow us to compare the situation and hence fix some priorities. And then we are producing information during this year about innovative financing methods for MSMEs, especially based on the new digitalized instruments, how they can really help micro and small enterprises to get into the financial system, whereas before they were excluded. So we will produce a report on this based on good practices around the world.
And ma'am, another big issue is the cost of remittances. The global average is 6%. Your target is to bring it to sub 3% level. Where are the negotiations headed on that front?
Well, we are working on that as well. As you say, the objective is clear. We are close to that, but not really there yet. I would say that the work of GPFI over the years has helped a lot to focus the attention on this. There was a discussion on that as well. There will be plans of each country towards that objective. But we discussed also more generally how remittances can help inclusion more generally, also on receiving countries, on receiving sites. So we expect GPFI to keep playing an important role in the discussion on this.
And your general view about Hyderabad, its cuisine, and especially the Holi celebration that you have just enjoyed.
It's an amazing place. It's a wonderful place.
So that's all from the second GPFI meeting here in Hyderabad. We hope that there will be some consensus on the Financial Inclusion Action Plan going forward from here. With camera person Sanjeev Sharma, Ajay Mishra, DD India, Hyderabad.
GPFI is an inclusive platform for all G20 countries, non-G20 countries and other relevant stakeholders to carry out the agenda of financial inclusion. The main action areas include promoting actions to improve digital financial inclusion for individuals as well as for micro, small and medium-sized enterprises and monitoring countries' progress in reducing the cost of remittances to internationally agreed targets. DD India correspondent Ajay Mishra spoke to the principal financial sector specialist at the ADB on this. Listen in.
We have with us Mr. Arup Chatterjee, who is the principal financial sector specialist at ADB, who's taking part at the second GPFI meeting in Hyderabad. Thank you very much, sir. So, where are the discussions on financial inclusion heading? Because you are also part of this very important meeting.
Well, the financial inclusion agenda is a very important agenda not only for Asia but also for the rest of the world. The focus now is on access to finance for SMEs. The Indian presidency is looking at the leveraging on digital financial infrastructure and how it can help in providing access to finance in an efficient manner and also in terms of balancing the risk and opportunities. There has been a lot of interest in imbibing these new technologies to involve private sector also in that sense and also learn from the examples happening in the other countries of the world to see what could be the best fit for different countries in the region.
So when it comes to financial inclusion, sir, this digital public infrastructure was the focus in the first Kolkata meeting, which you also present in. What is the core focus out here in the second meeting?
Well, the focus continues to remain on digital financial infrastructure, but they are looking at areas both beyond credit also in terms of increasing the resilience of the population, the low-income population, looking at services like remittance, looking at insurance, especially for the small farmers, and also looking at other mechanisms which can possibly alleviate some of the problems in terms of accessing finance by putting in certain risk financing mechanisms. There is a huge consensus and support in advancing financial inclusion for increasing access to finance and also increasing resilience of the low-income population in most of these countries.
And do you think that you will be able to finalize the financial inclusion action plan for next 3 years?
Yeah, so the work on financial inclusion action plan has already commenced and we are very hopeful that it will be completed during this presidency.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. So this financial inclusion action plan is very important from point of view of financial inclusion because as we understand it's a collective effort from all G20 countries and organization beyond like ADB. With camera person Sanjeev Sharma, Ajay Mishra, DD India, Hyderabad.
In an opinion article in the English daily, the Hindustan Times, G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant has expressed his views on G20 agenda for women-led growth. In the op-ed, he said India's presidency of G20 brings enormous focus on the role of women and gender equality, and PM has highlighted the imperative need for tackling issues of women's access to finance, entrepreneurship and labour force participation. And India's G20 president will further the agenda by supporting women's digital and financial inclusion, making them equal stakeholders in development, pushing for women's leadership and investing in the collection of gender disaggregated data. The Indian Institute of Technology, ROPER, is all set to host the second Education Working Group meeting on strengthening research and innovation through collaboration between the 15th and the 17th of March in Amritsar. The event will focus on identification of relevant policies and best practices for research and innovations. Through this event, the government intends to create closer ties with the G20 member nations and collectively respond to the issues each country has in reaching SDG goals. The discussions will also concentrate on methods and tactics such as cooperative initiatives that could be implemented to encourage collaboration in many fields. In the next story, we retrace the highlights of India's G20 presidency over the last 3 months since India assumed the presidency of the crucial geo-economic grouping. Take a look.
अपनी G20 अध्यक्षता की रूपरेखा ग्लोबल साउथ के उन सभी मित्रों के साथ मिलकर बनाएंगे जो विकास के पथ पर दशकों से भारत के सहयात्री रहे हैं। हमारा प्रयास रहेगा कि विश्व में कोई भी फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड या थर्ड वर्ल्ड न हो, बल्कि केवल वन वर्ल्ड हो। भारत पूरे विश्व को एक कॉमन ऑब्जेक्टिव के लिए, एक बेहतर भविष्य के लिए साथ लाने के विजन पर काम कर रहा है।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's message of unity for the world amid geopolitical tensions, dilemmas and the knockout effects of the COVID-19 pandemic at the unveiling of the logo, theme and website of India's G20 presidency. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the theme of India's G20 presidency, symbolizes that spirit of universal brotherhood. That spirit has since been running like a common thread at all G20 meetings, cutting across diverse socio-economic sectors in India. Living up to its commitment made to the Global South or the developing world, India organized the first ever Voice of Global South Summit on 12th and 13th January 2023. More than 120 developing countries participated in the summit, making it the largest ever virtual gathering of the Global South. India's approach was consultative, outcome-oriented, demand-driven, people-centric and respectful of the sovereignty of partner countries.
India will establish a Global South Center of Excellence. This institution will undertake research on development solutions or best practices of any of our countries, which can be scaled and implemented in other members of the Global South. We will launch a Global South Science and Technology Initiative to share our experience, to share our expertise with other developing nations. I would now like to announce a new Arogya Maitri project. Under this project, India will provide essential medical supplies to any developing country affected by natural disasters or humanitarian crisis. I propose a Global South Young Diplomats Forum to connect youthful officers to our foreign ministries. India will also institute Global South scholarships for students from developing countries to pursue higher education in India.
The world's poorest live in the developing world, and their welfare was India's thrust at the meeting of G20 finance ministers and central bank governors in Bengaluru.
I would urge that your discussions should focus on the most vulnerable citizens of the world. Only by creating an inclusive agenda will the global economic leadership win back the confidence of the world.
Echoing the sentiment at the G20 foreign ministers meeting in New Delhi, PM Modi said that India's G20 presidency has tried to give a voice to the global south, since the tragic consequences of the failure of global governance was being faced mostly by developing countries.
Many developing countries are struggling with unsustainable debt while trying to ensure food and energy security for their people. They are also the ones most affected by global warming caused by richer countries. This is why India's G20 presidency has tried to give a voice to the global south.
At the foreign ministers meeting, India succeeded in getting leaders together in a world deeply divided due to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. While there were divergences among G20 member states on the conflict, India forged consensus on issues concerning the global south, such as the need for multilateralism, climate finance, counter-terrorism, counter-narcotics, and global skill mapping.
On the bulk of the issues which concern especially the global south, the developing countries, there was a considerable meeting of minds, and a considerable meeting of minds which has been captured by the outcome document. Now, the question, why was, did we fall short of expectations? Why is it called what it is? If we had had a perfect meeting of minds on all issues and captured it fully, then obviously it would have been a collective statement. But there were issues, and I think the issues, I would say, very frankly, concerned the Ukraine conflict, on which there were divergences. So on the bulk of the issues, we were able to get an outcome document. There was a chair summary because there were differences on the Ukraine issue which we could not reconcile between various parties who held differing positions.
In fact, the first week of March 2023 saw heightened diplomatic activity in New Delhi. Other than hosting the foreign ministers meeting, India welcomed Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni on her first official visit to India after assuming office. PM Meloni was effusive in her praise for PM Modi's leadership and shared her expectations from India's G20 presidency in helping broker peace in Ukraine.
Modi has reached, I think, is the most loved one of all around the world. But I mean, this has really proven that he has been a major leader, and congratulations for that, which is giving full support to the territorial integrity of Ukraine. And we both hope that India, having the presidency of the G20, may play a central role in facilitating a negotiating process for the cessation of hostilities for a just peace.
Close on the heels of the foreign ministers meeting, India became a hub for influential voices in geopolitics and geoeconomics as it hosted the Raisina Dialogue. India's geopolitical rise and crucial role in the changing international landscape was a common across the conversations at Raisina Dialogue. In one of those conversations, former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair termed India's G20 presidency as a demonstration of India's rising power.
The position of India now, this is again my view as an outsider, is potentially more powerful than it's ever been. With the G20, this is in a way a demonstration of its authority on the global stage. But increasingly around the world, when countries are worried about whether they have to choose between the USA and China, I think India is a country seen by many as an objective friend. And I think it's got the opportunity now to lead the global south in a way that's never been true before.
On the same day, philanthropist and co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Bill Gates called on Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Penning his thoughts on his meeting in Gates Notes, Bill Gates termed India's G20 presidency as an excellent opportunity to highlight how innovations developed in India can benefit the world and to help other countries adopt them. He assured that supporting these efforts, especially spreading its digital ID and payment system to other places, is a high priority for his foundation. Distilling his conversation with PM Modi, he further wrote, "My conversation with the Prime Minister left me more optimistic than ever about the progress that India is making in health, development and climate. The country is showing what's possible when we invest in innovation. I hope India will continue this progress and share its innovations with the world. I'm proud that the Gates Foundation will be a partner along the way." This video, tweeted by Bill Gates after the meeting, captures India's transformation over the decades. It's been over 3 months since India assumed the presidency of G20 on 1st December 2022. And in this period, its unique positioning and a mature leadership at the helm not only helped it bring together world leaders with extremely divergent stands under one roof, but also helped it navigate a consensus on issues that matter to the global south, true to the spirit of the theme of its G20 presidency of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. One Earth, one family, one future. Bureau Report, DD India.
And we now leave you with holy festivities at the G20 Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion meeting in Hyderabad. Enjoy these visuals. Namaskar.
क्या बात है, बहुत फिट लग रहा है।
3 महीने में पैसे डबल, वाह।
फास्ट और हाई रिटर्न्स भी।
क्या स्कीम है? कल तो नहीं थी यहाँ।
और कल होगा भी नहीं।
तूने कभी 5 ओवर में डबल सेंचुरी मारी है?
ऐसे स्कीम के बहकावे में आके हम धोखा खा सकते हैं।
और आरबीआई कहता है अपना पैसा सुरक्षित रखो और समझदारी से निवेश करो। अगर ज्यादा रिटर्न के पीछे भागोगे तो रिस्क भी उतना ही उठाओगे।
और फास्ट रिटर्न से बच के।
और फास्ट बॉलिंग